the difference between Alzheimer's and dementia. Aishling Kelly.
Dementia is a general term used for a decline in cognitive ability, and when it becomes dangerous is when it actually affects a lot of things that prevent you from living a normal everyday life. While symptoms of different dementias vary greatly, at least two of the following core mental functions must be able to be listed in order for it to be diagnosed as a form of dementia. Memory decline would be one of these symptoms. Communication and language, being able to talk and speak clearly to your family members. Your ability to pay attention and to focus is a third factor. Your reasoning and judgment and your visual perception. I'll explain a little bit about those now in a minute. There are 10 warning signs of dementia according to the Alzheimer's Association. They're all up here on the board. Memory loss that disrupts daily life, challenges in problem solving like we said earlier, difficulty completing familiar tasks at home, confusion with time, trouble understanding visual image and spatial relations, that comes back to perception, new problems with words and speaking or writing, misplacing things and losing the ability to retrace their steps. So that's the real key, is the ability to not retrace your steps, because we all lose our keys every day. I know I do. Decreased or poor judgment, withdrawal from work and social activities, and changes in mood and personality. So if you were to guess, how many forms of dementia do you think there are? Would you think that there's less than 10, more than 10, under 20, or above 30? If you were to take a guess, what would you think? About 30? Well, some people say there's over 50 forms of dementia. That's definitely a fact. And other people say there's over 300. So I think more over 50 would be more correct. But this is the best diagram that I can use to help you understand it. So dementia is a common broad term. And underneath dementia is the different names of dementia. So where this comes into play, Alzheimer's, for example, is a form of dementia. So if you have Alzheimer's, you have dementia. But if you have dementia, it doesn't mean you have Alzheimer's. It could be any one of these other ones here that come under the umbrella. Different types of dementia are associated with different parts of the brain, and we have 5 different areas in the brain, which I'll show you in a minute. But, for example, Alzheimer's, which is the most prevalent form of dementia, carrying 60 to 65% of diagnosis. What happens here is that there's high levels of plaque tau tangles and proteins in the brain, and it takes away the communication abilities from one neuron to the other. The brain region called the hippocampus is the center of the learning and memory of the brain, and sadly that's the first part of the brain that shows memory loss. This is the brain. There's the 5 portions like I explained to you. Temporal lobe takes care of hearing, learning and feelings. Your frontal, thinking, memory, behavior and movement. Language is your parietal, sight is occipital, and then cerebellum is balance and coordination. And that all ties back to all the different types of dementia that you can have. That's an actual picture of a slice and dice piece of somebody's brain that actually had dementia. You can see the plaques and the tangles. This is just a little picture of how it starts, preclinical on the top, moderate in the middle, and severe. And if you look at the blue areas, at the very top in the preclinical AD, that's back in the hippocampus area where the disease actually starts. Moderate is in the middle, and then the severe is at the end where you can see it's taking over the whole brain. Okay, this doesn't like me. We're gone again. Anyway, in that diagram that I showed you a few minutes ago of the 3 different types of beginning, middle stage, and end stage, if you looked at the next picture that came on that slide, it was 2 photographs of a healthy brain and a not so healthy brain. The healthy brain being the one that was all plump, and the other one was the brain that was much smaller. And that's what happens in dementia. Your brain cells start to die off. As you can see here, look at the 2 differences, and your brains begin to shrink. We already went over that at 60 to 65% is considered Alzheimer's. carrying the biggest percentage of the diagnosis. Vascular dementia is pretty typical for people who have a stroke. Risk factors usually present high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and diabetes. You have Lewy bodies, which in my opinion is the most horrific form of dementia. In that case, you see somebody who not only struggles with the disease, but they also have massive hallucinations, and their personality really changes, and it's very frightening both for them and their family members, and it's very hard for our health people to manage anybody that has that disease. Nobody wants to take anybody with Lewy body dementia into their facilities because they scare everybody else away. Frontal temporal is also another form. This is about the third most popular form of dementia that affects personality. When you see people's personality changing very fast, typically it's usually this type of dementia they have. Alzheimer's, sadly, is progressive. There is no cure, and the person, sadly, will die of that disease, spanning from somewhere between 5 to 20 years. You can see the trajectory there. They actually have 4 stages in here. Some people say now there's 5, some people say there's 7. I like to believe that there's the stage that we never know about. Then there's when they get diagnosed, which is preclinical. Then on top of that, you have the middle, and then you have the end. And this is a picture of my mom before she had dementia. But dementia affects normal families, and it affected mine, and it's very prevalent out there. So I hope that in my presentation today, I was able to explain just a little bit more about how aggressive this disease is and all the different titles. Thank you.